With the explosion of threads recently and everyone deciding that they now trust Meta, it was interesting to see Wes Boss tweet out this kind of CLI that he created. So I thought this would be a really fun project to try to attempt on my own. And he didn't give a lot of the code, just kind of this little snippet right here. So I figured this would be a great place to kind of explore how to write your own CLI. Now, we'll do this in a few stages. First of all, I'm going to go ahead and just try to get the functionality working. So can I get back these threads from Wes's account or my account or any other account? Secondly, we're going to try to style this. And here's where we're going to use something called Warp AI. This is part of the Warp terminal. And you can ask it questions and it knows about your code context. And so therefore, as I'm writing, it'll actually help guide us to something that looks similar to Wes's. And then finally, I want to use a tool called Clack by Nate Moore that allows you to write these kind of custom CLI toolings. It gives you these custom prompts that then you can use to have interaction with the user. In this case, it's you. All right, you're the user. Then finally, what we're going to do is add an alias so that anytime you type something like 3 to me, it will just send you this little prompt where you can then decide between seeing mine or Wes's or just some other random user. And of course, you can customize that for your own use case. I had so much fun putting this thing together and I hope you'll enjoy it. All right, let's jump in. Hey, what's up? My name is Chris and welcome to Coding in Public. Now, I should mention that this video is sponsored by Warp itself. So if you're not familiar with the Warp terminal, it's right over here. We're going to be using it throughout this tutorial, especially the Warp AI. So with that out of the way, let's go ahead and start. And again, we're just going to jump straight in, assuming that you understand how to use all this, and we'll just kind of explore it together. Now, I do know that there's no desktop app, but if you go to threads.net /@ whatever the username is, you can get access to all of the things, even if you're not authenticated. So I'm not here, so let's go ahead and look at Wes's profile. And I know that if I come in here and look at the network tab, and I look at fetch and I reload, I should get access to this since I'm not authenticated. Somehow it's getting the data here. And it looks like it's through GraphQL. So over here, let's see, we've got a couple things. This looks like the user itself, all right? So whoever's maybe coming, no, it's actually the user right here, okay? So looks like this might be our threads. Yeah, right here. So we can do this in a couple different ways, but for instance, I could come in here and just right click and copy this and copy it as like a curl command. Now I've got this empty project over here, this empty directory, but if I paste in this curl command, you can see I get back all this stuff, which is his actual posts. So rather than doing this all in like shell script, I'm going to do this in JavaScript since that's what I'm most familiar with. Once again, this is just an empty directory right here, so nothing in this so far. So let's go ahead and kind of scaffold this out as we'll need to. I can come back over here and I can right click this and copy as fetch because that's what we're going to be using. And then let's go ahead and just npm init-y to initialize a package.json, which will allow us to install things as we need them. Now, I could do all this in Vim or something. I'm not super comfortable yet with Vim, although I am learning it. So for now, I'm going to go ahead and open this up in VS Code. All right, so I've got VS Code open here on the left, and you can see it right over this way. Let's go ahead and touch an index.js file to start with, so that way we've got something to work with. Then I'll close down that sidebar, and then let's go ahead and write a function. We'll call this something like fetch threads URL. And this does need to be an async function since we're going to be doing some asynchronous work. And then I'm going to go ahead and paste in everything I just copied over. So I'm going to go ahead and close down the headers. We don't need all of that, and we'll ignore all this for now. And I know that once I get that back, let's maybe capture that in some kind of variable. So we'll say const res equals await fetch, and then let's come down here and we'll const JSON equals await res.json. If we did this all correctly, I should be able to console log this and go ahead and run. Let's do node index.js, and this should run it for us. Now, I've yet to call it, which is why nothing happens. So let's come back over here and let's fetch the threads URL. And there we go. So we get back data and we get back extensions, which is exactly what I've got over here. So that's what I would expect. Now, what I want to do is come inside here and grab the threads right here. So let me go ahead and right click and copy the property value here. And then I should be able to come in here and say json.data.metadata threads. So again, let's run this again. And now I get back that array of thread items. Okay, so we're partially there. If I come back over here, looks like he's actually printing out just the content. So let's figure out where that is. If I come inside these threads, looks like this is an array, and the array has items in it, these objects inside of it. So these thread items also is an array, and inside here we've got posts, and it looks like maybe here, caption.text. So let's again right click and copy this. And this is what we're going to want to look at inside of here. So maybe instead of doing this all inside this fetch function, let's go ahead and return out of here this json.data.metadata.threads or mediadata.threads, and let's call this something like, what did he call this? get threads. All right, so let's call this threads or threads or something like that. Let's call it threads. All right, so we're going to fetch that URL, and we do need to await this as well. Now, once we have those threads, let's go ahead and loop through them. So threads.map, because it's an array once again, and maybe let's call this something like structured threads. We'll call this like a thread. For each thread I want to return out of here, the thread dot, what was this? Thread items. All right, so like this. And now this is this array right inside here. All right, these thread items. That means I need to do another loop through all this as well. So we'll say .map, and then inside each of these items, it looks like the post is the thing I need. So I can actually destructure that post, and then we can return out of here, and maybe let's just return an object. We could have something like the text, and this would be the post.caption.text, right? Yeah. And I do need to surround this in parentheses. Okay, so what we're doing is once we get them all, we're mapping through them. That gives us to right here. Then as we loop through those, we're then looking at the post, and inside the post, we're looking at the caption.text. Now, if I scroll down here, let's see, we've got a user as well. Maybe we should add the user. We got the user.username. So let's go ahead and copy this as well. Actually, it's just post.user.username, I think. So let's go ahead and copy this down. We'll say user post.user.username. Now, if we did all this correctly, I should be able to go ahead and console log this, come back over this way and run it once more. Now here we're running in a sync at the top. So you can do this in a couple different ways to fix this, but probably the easiest is just to make this a module, which I can do again in a few different ways, but let's go ahead and just add type here, and we'll do a module. Okay, so one more time over here. And it looks like we've got a problem on line 42. So let's see what that is right inside here, this post.caption.text. So it looks like maybe some of them don't have. Let's check in here. Let's see. All right, so right inside here, this thread items, post, caption, null. Okay, so some don't have this. So maybe what we could do is do a little check here first. We could do something like if post.caption.text, if that exists, then go ahead and return that. Otherwise, it should just skip that individual one. And I'm sure if I looked at all these, I could see exactly how to capture each of those. But for now, we're just going to say, if it has a caption, print it out. If it doesn't, you can just ignore it. So let's run it one more time. All right, and there we go. So we got the text, and we've also got the user. Now let me come over here. I'm assuming there's like an active link somewhere. Let's check this out. So if I come over here and I copy this link, what does this look like? So it looks like threads. It's at WestBoss, and it's this right here. So the very first one, let's check out what's going on here. Actually, right inside here, right? Okay, so it looks like it's .code on the post. All right, cool. So we can actually go ahead and do the same thing. We could say like URL or maybe link or I don't know, whatever you want to do here. And here, I'm going to go ahead and paste all this in. And here we can just do the same little username check. So post.user.username and then /post/post.code. That's what we got right over here. Now, if you noticed over here, we just had a huge array of all these items right here. So we can do this in a couple different ways, but probably the easiest thing to do would be to loop through them. So rather than just console logging the entire thing, let's do something like structured threads dot for each. I want to grab the thread itself, and then I want to console.log the thread. Okay, so now it's time to start actually using Warp AI. I'm going to jump back over this way because you can see he's got this kind of like design around it. So let's see if we can get Warp AI to tell us what it's doing there. All right. So we could say something like, how can I style a console log in Node.js so that it is enclosed in a box? All right, you can see it's actually telling me how to manually do this. Let's see if there's a library. A library for this. All right, it says Boxin. All right, now just a second. I thought he does use Boxin. I thought that was just a West Bossism, but it looks like there's an actual thing here. So I can go ahead and insert this with Command Enter or click it right there, and this will install this dependency in my project. Then all I have to do is basically pass it a message, which it looks like needs to be some kind of string, and then I can pass it styling after it in an object. So let's come back over this way. I'll go to the top of the file here, and let's go ahead and convert this. Actually, let's ask it to do it for us. So I'll say convert the Boxin import and command to ES6. All right, perfect. Let's grab this right here and then paste it in here. And I'm going to just go ahead and grab all this as well. So down this way, let's scroll all the way down here. And here where I'm returning, I can go ahead and grab the message. In this case, what I'll do is grab this right here. And come to think of it, I probably don't need all this anyhow. I can just go ahead and paste this in directly here. Now we will go ahead and console log that, but let's get rid of this right now, right here. And let's go ahead and rerun it. And just like that, we've got all of them right here. Now, here's the cool thing is because it's got all my context here, Warp AI does, I could say something like, how can I add color to this? And it should give me some examples of how that works. Now, it's suggesting here I install another dependency, but I know that there's a way to do this with Box. And I could go back and look at the tweet, but let's just see if Warp AI can figure it out. I want to use Boxen to color the box or something like that. All right, here we go. Border color green. So we can add all that. So if I come back over here, we could say border color, and I could set this to green. All right, so with that said, let's go ahead and rerun this. And just like that, now I've got this green border all around it. All right, cool. So we've basically done exactly what he had there. Now, I don't just have to use Wes's here. I could also use my own. So if I come over here and let's see, let's go to @coding in public. Get the same kind of thing right over here. And again, it's showing me all my tweets. Now, let's say I look at this and I say, hey, I want to know what's the difference between one and the other. Well, I've got a little clipboard manager I can pull up, and this will grab both of these in a row. So let's copy this as fetch, and then let's come back this way to Wes's, and maybe right here. And I'll go ahead and copy his as well. So let's copy this as fetch. Now, I'm going to come over here to Warp AI and say, how can I diff check two strings? Maybe I don't remember how to do that exactly. And you can see here it suggests a package that I could use. Oops, right here, how I could suggest this called diff. So I could install this and then compare those two strings. Now, the reason I wanted to do that is to show you something that I did figure out when I was first exploring this whole idea. And that is that when you come in here, there's a little user property on both of these. So right here, this user ID, you'll notice this like right here, this encoded number 22. This actually is like telling you right inside here, this is his actual username. This means he was the 51,900 and whatever person to sign up. Now, what that tells me is I can adjust exactly how I'm calling this to get back a certain user if I want to. So in this case, what I could do is pass through a user ID. So let's go ahead and take Wes's right here, this 51208, and you can see that it's right here in my code. So up top here, I'm going to go ahead and grab this and just set this to user ID. And I'll come up top here and pass this in as user ID. Now, this means that I can pass in any user ID. In this case, I happen to be passing through Wes's, so it should give me the same exact results, but I could come in here and run this, and now I get access to Wes's. However, if I jump back over this way, and I look at my own, I can come inside here, let's see, let's go ahead and copy this as fetch. I'll come inside here, and I've got a user ID right here. Here's my encoded 22. Here is my username right here, or my user number. And I'm going to come up here, and now I'm going to use this instead. So this should give me all like what, 3 of mine that I've actually done. So there you go. I've got 3 that I've actually done. So we can just pass in a number, and because they're just related to when you signed up for the service, basically any number below however many they have should give us back something. Now, it may be that somebody has not yet posted a thread or threaded or whatever it's supposed to be called. So we may not get back anything for them. So we might have to do some checks on that. But what I want to do now is go ahead and use what we've explored and tie it together with one other package that I've actually done a video on before. It's this Clack prompts by Nate Moore, where you can actually ask the user for something and then respond to that by actually running some kind of code. So this is just kind of icing on the top. If you're interested in this, feel free to stick around. I know that we need to install this because that's what we did when I did that video a little bit ago. So let's go ahead and do that. So we'll do npm I and then Clack prompts. Now with that out of the way, let's go ahead and come inside here. I'm pretty sure there was some kind of example that I used. Yeah, right here, examples, basic, index, and let's go ahead and copy this out. Now for now, what I'm going to do is just paste this in down below here. And then let's go ahead and rerun this. It should actually give me my same things and then ask me all those prompt questions. Yeah, right here. So you can see you can give it answers, then it asks you to provide a password and all this kind of stuff. You can choose between stuff. So let's go ahead and cancel out of this. Come back over here and inspect what we've got. So if I come up top here, all right, we've imported all this right here. We're just going to keep this here. We don't need to do a set timeout. This color is fine. We can leave that there. Let's go ahead and get rid of this. And you can see it's going to run this function called main. And when it runs that, you can see that it has an introduction, which is the first thing it asks you. In this case, maybe it could say something just like, we could say, welcome to Threads CLI. All right, and then I've got this project.group here. This P comes from Clack prompts, and I can pass it different things. So here's a path, which is just a text input. And if they enter that, then it goes on to the next thing for password. And then I can grab the results off any of the past ones here and then interact with them. So like the path itself, which was up here, I now get access to down here in the select. So let's go ahead and erase most of this because we're not going to need most of this. We won't need a path or a password. And here, because I do want to use a select to choose between Wes, myself, and maybe any random user, I could come in here and say something like user. So that's what we're going to do. We don't need results because we're not getting anything from there. What I could say is like, which user do you want to view, or something like that. Now we've got a few different options here. We could have a random user. This would just be any random number. We could also have me, so coding in public, or we could also have Wes Boss, so Wes Boss. And maybe since I've already got a hint here, let's just do I have some kind of like emoji for fire? I think Wes likes using that, so we'll do that there. Now for each of these, I need to paste in the actual value, which would be the number, the ID of the user. So I know I've got mine and his. So here's mine, and his was right here. So that's his, and here's mine. And then for here, I don't know what the value should be because I want it to just be a random number. I can do math.floor and then math.random, and I'll go ahead and multiply this times, I don't know. We could do something crazy because there's a lot of users, and I'll just choose a random number there. Let's go ahead and set this as well as our initial value. And so it will automatically select this one to start with. Okay, so I think that's good and ready to go. We don't need a multi-select, so I can get rid of this. And we're also not going to ask them to confirm anything. So really all we're going to do is ask one question, which is, which user do you want? A random one, coding in public, or Wes Boss? Now, if they cancel it, I want to pass a custom message here like, yeah, ain't got no threads, all right, or something, all right? So it'll cancel out of this. Now, project.install, that no longer exists, but it's looking on this object here for project. What I want to know is project.user. So let's say this. If that's the case, let's go ahead and add a spinner. Then we'll say something like retrieving threads. Now, inside here is where we're going to actually run the code in a second. And then here, I don't know that I need some kind of closing message, so we'll just close it off like that. Or maybe we'll do an empty string. I think maybe we need to do that. Let's kill these next steps. This outro, I'm not sure we need this either, so let's kill all that. All right, so here's where we actually need to do this await right here. So let's come up top here, and we're going to grab all this, and I'll come inside here and paste it in here. Now, a couple things, we're no longer needing access to this variable after it's run, so we'll just map through those. The other thing we want to do is replace this with whatever they've chosen. Now, again, you can choose project dot whatever the thing happens to be. Now, we only have a user, which is the user they've selected, which will be the value of this select right here. So if we've done all this correctly, now we've got a nice little UI that we can actually use in the CLI. So random coding in public or Wes Boss. So let's choose coding in public, and there we go. We got mine. Let's go again. We'll go Wes Boss, and we've got his, and we'll go one more time and grab a random user. Now, it looks like here they don't have any media data, which probably means they haven't done any threads. So we could do an extra little check there, but you can see we've got the spinner just sitting around waiting for us. So let's kill that for now, and let's come up here. And first of all, check to see, maybe we should do this in the threads URL. So here they fetched it right inside here. If they don't have this, then we'll jump out of here or actually redo it here. So let's come in here and say something like if json.data, and let's do .media data, and then .threads. If this exists, then go ahead and return. Otherwise, I just want to make this a recursive function. So it's going to call itself again like this. So I'll say call itself, and we'll use the user ID that we've already passed in. All right, cool. So let's now check to see if our random is working here. And it looks like we've got a problem on 7613. So let's see what's going on over here. 7613. So we must not be getting back threads as an array right here. So let's think through our different options. If I come back up here, let's first of all make sure we're actually getting the value we want here. And I think I might see the problem here. This is a number, and I think what we want this to be, if I grab both of these with Command D, I think we actually want these to both be strings. But just to make sure that's what we're actually getting, what we think we are, I'm going to go ahead and come down this way. And right here, let's go ahead and just console log this project.user. All right, so let's run it again. We'll do random. So we are actually getting this right here. That's what we need. And just to make sure that this is a string as I think it is, let's go ahead and come in here and just pass this in as a string. So we're going to manually say we want this user. So let's come back in here, and it doesn't really matter which one I choose now, but it looks like we're having a problem there. Let's just choose a different user, see if maybe it's just the user themselves. They don't have any posts. And we'll just keep this up until we get something that works. Okay, so there at least it didn't spaz out on us. So we actually have a user who's done something. Okay, so this is helpful though, because it tells us that these random users may not be people that we can actually trust to give us back posts. So let's get rid of this right here, and we'll call this project.user. And now come all the way back up top here. And here, let's maybe reverse this right here. So let's say if there is no JSON.data, then we want to fetch the threads URL again. Otherwise, we're just going to return this right here. So let's try that and see if that works. So it didn't mess up on us, but we didn't get anybody back yet. Let's do random again. And here, let's think through this one more time, because I know those two users work. This, however, should be my math.random right here. Right? Because I want it to be a random one each time it's trying. So let's try this again. It keeps trying, and then there we go. So I get somebody back. Cool. So I'm sure there's more you could do to debug this, but I hope this was helpful, at least in kind of using AI itself to kind of flesh out what this might look like, including styling and all that kind of stuff. And in addition to that, I've now got this all set up over here as well. Now, there's one other thing to think about, which would be how to actually make this to where I could just invoke it with like a keyword. So I could ask something like, in my shell, which is ZSH, how do I set up a keyword to run a script? Maybe you've forgotten or you don't know what it's called, but that's called an alias. Let's see what it does when I ask this question. Yep, sure enough, it tells me to open my ZSHRC file and then actually add in an alias. So let's go ahead and do that now. And I'm definitely in the present working directory of this right here. So we could use this, or I could just do this right here. So let's go ahead, let's just use Vim and open up that. And let's just come all the way down here. I think I've got some aliases somewhere. Yeah, right there. So let's go ahead and insert these as well. So we'll say alias. And I'll call this something like threatme. And I'll set this equal to node. And then I'll go ahead and paste that in there. Okay, so let's go ahead and close it. And then over here, it's telling you that you've got to source it just to make sure that your terminal is ready to go. And now as I type, let's see, it gives me threatme already. And now I can just choose between these. So there's my coding in public one. I could do it again and grab West Boss, or I could do it again and do a random user. Well, I hope that was a lot of fun. Not only did we get to use Warp AI, but we also got to use this new Clack library that's really fun to play with in the CLI to create your own kind of tools. And then we even created an alias so that you can invoke this anytime you want for any user. Hey, well, if you've watched this long, thank you so much for watching. A huge thanks to Warp again for sponsoring this video, and I will catch you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Happy coding.